Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Field Fridays. Today, I don't have a whiteboard, so
Yeah. Rest in peace, the whiteboard.
back to whiteboard. It was good while it lasted. Too many old ladies walked in on me last week, so
Yeah.
this week we were supposed to have my girlfriend Laura Brunelle, but she got her monthly case of strep.
It's
Uh,
monthly.
it's really, and I never get it, and I always kiss her while she has it. So
You're immune.
I might be, knock on wood.
Maybe.
But welcome to the pod, our friend, eligible bachelor, pro gamer,
Whoa.
fisher. He fishes
Yeah, occasionally.
occasionally. Carson Norton-Sutherland.
Hey.
Um, today this month is June, which is a lot of things. But one of those things is Indigenous Peoples Month here in Canada. And Carson is a genius. He's a very smart guy. He's in the Indigenous Education program at Censored University. We don't gotta give that away. Um, So we're gonna talk to him a little bit about that and also whatever he wants because he's a cool guy. But first, Carson, you have some media recs for our listeners.
So number one, I don't know if it's gonna show up backwards or front facing.
It'll show up front facing.
21 Things You Didn't Know About the Indian Act is an amazing read. It's required coursework in quite a few different courses. Well, not coursework, but required text in quite a few different courses. And even if you're not in a class that requires it or in a class at all, it's a great way to learn a couple of things you didn't know beforehand. Uh, there's a lot of misconceptions about how Indigenous people fit into the different government systems around Canada, and that does a really good thing. A really good job at kind of explaining the discrepancies. A lot of people like to think that uh, First Nations are funded by federal tax dollars, and that's not true. Um, it talks about it more in here, but there's this thing called the Indian Trust Fund that was set up, uh, and it gains interest over the years, and that's what funds all the different projects on First Nations. Um, number one, this is a good little horror read. It's called The Only Good Indians. Um, Honestly, I haven't finished it yet, but so far, it's a really good read. It's by Stephen Graham Jones. Uh, maybe post the link after or something. I don't know.
I'll
Uh,
post these. I'll write them down and I'll
yeah,
post them up.
but it's sort of about this group of friends. They're all from the same reservation, and these bad things happened before they all left, and they gotta go back to deal with this shit, and that's kind of what's going on there. And now I don't have anything to talk about Inuit right now, but a good book for learning about the Métis people is "The Northwest Is Our Mother" by Jean Teillet. Uh, it looks thick. It's kind of intimidating, but half the pages, well, not half, less than half, obviously, but quite a few pages are just citing sources. But it's a good history. Uh, it's it's a good way to present the history of the Métis Nation without going into complete depth. Uh, anyway, that's all there. You got questions for me?
I have some. Yeah, I don't know if Jace has any prepared.
Don't.
Probably not because we switched pretty last minute.
Yeah, I'm surprised you had some prepared this last minute too.
I'll just be like that. Well, I also
Yeah.
know like Carson's
Yeah.
specialties and interests, and yeah. I wanted to start off by asking because like a lot of people might be listening to this who aren't Indigenous, and I want to talk about. I want to ask you what you think defines like the role of an ally to Indigenous people, all time around, but also like especially this month and on Indigenous Peoples Day, which is June 21st.
So really, the only thing that the difference between being an ally of indigenous peoples and other marginalized groups is that, like other marginalized groups, we're not all one monolith. But it's even more true with indigenous peoples because of the hundreds of different cultures and tribes from across the continent and into South America as well. They've kept a lot more autonomy than we have up here. So it's kind of hard to speak from their perspective because I don't really know that. But being an ally is just sort of the way I see it personally is being able to um, think of indigenous people as our own nations and to not view us as just another cog in the machine that Canada is, because we have long political histories that extend even farther, way farther than the existence of Canada. Um, and most of our policies and what we want is just to uh, regain more of that self-determination, uh, rather than being just another part of the machine. And I really do think the best way is to view indigenous nations not as a foreign thing, but as another, like almost a sister nation almost, where you don't see hard borders, but you do see that we are a people with a distinct history separate to that of Canada that extends long before the colonial borders of Canada and the United States and the other countries in North and South America. So it's a lot less of just being there and blindly supporting Indigenous people, and it's being able to properly, reel in any crazy stuff you see going on. It's not being completely supportive 100% of the time, but it's being supportive in the fact that you are okay with nations making decisions for themselves rather than having those decisions be made by the federal or provincial governments.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more about respecting the autonomy and being able to have disagreements with us without just entirely uh, bending the knee or fighting back fully.
Yeah. Great. Well,
Yeah.
well spoken. Carson is a very well spoken guy. I know this about him. He's also like just an incredible, like one of the nicest people I know. So excited to have you on and talk about stuff that you're passionate about, and you're also welcome to bring up anything that you want to bring up. Doesn't have to be within the theme.
Yeah.
My yeah, I did have a question about kind of on the political scheme, and I don't know how much you want to dive into it, but a bill has been introduced in the past month or so called Bill 5 into the province of Ontario. This bill affects a lot of things. It affects natural resources, affects education, and I just wanted to talk about. I've seen a lot of protests in my area. I live near Queen's Park. Um, I wanted to talk about how this bill is going to affect Indigenous people.
Bill 5, without getting into the actual aspects of it, just the name of the bill is ridiculous. What is it? The Unleashing Ontario's Economy by whatever. Whoever let Doug Ford name the bill himself probably shouldn't have let that happen. But it's not just the impact that this bill is going to have on Indigenous communities, but it's also the impact that it's going to be having on the environment, because the Endangered Species Act from 2007 is being completely thrown out and replaced with a section of this bill called the Species Protection Act, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
And the wording and its effects are similar to the Endangered Species Act, but it allows for corporations and other smaller companies to be able to go and harvest resources from these areas that were previously protected by the Endangered Species Act, as well as being able to set up in locations that are on the traditional or reserve-owned territory of First Nations, because because claiming traditional territory is one thing that's a lot harder to do, and it doesn't always hold up in legality cases, but they're also trying to reach directly onto reserve lands, which are 100% controlled by the First Nation and the federal government. So being able to reach past that doesn't really make sense, even though it's part of the bill and it would allow the provincial government to just approve projects without consultation of First Nations, like pretty explicitly on land that they do own and not just stuff that they have historical claims to. And that's not very great. Imagine if someone showed up in Midland because they discovered like minerals underneath a couple houses, so they start tearing down all of the infrastructure in the town just to get to the resources. And they're not tearing apart infrastructure up in the north, but they are tearing apart ecosystems to get to the resources in the Ring of Fire. And that is just as detrimental to the wildlife and the spiritual and cultural practices of First Nations up there. And it's not even just about affecting First Nations. If anybody lives up in the north, like anyone, regardless of heritage, is living in the north, they could absolutely be affected by the companies just coming in and stripping the land of trees and minerals and even the water, which is a little less of a concern because a lot of the fresh drinking water in Canada is taken from other places, but it could still be greatly affected by Bill 5.
Yeah. Doug Ford gets 5 big dooms from the Fueled Fridays podcast. And yeah. As we call things here, Doug Ford is officially declared doo-doo fart by the Fueled Friday guys. So
we're not buying any Fords because of his last name now. We can't own those.
Facts boycott Ford. No, but seriously, this bill is obviously very serious and impactful. I've seen a lot of protests. I haven't been able to be a part of them, but I think it's really great to see people out there, and not just Indigenous people, but allies as well. Um, and I also just wanted to go back to the thing about nature. Is like, obviously, I love nature. I have a connection to nature, but what would you say is like specific about a connection to nature as like an Anishinaabe person versus like a white person or a settler?
Part of Anishinaabe culture is being able to depend on the land, and that's not just like taking it and shaping it to your needs. It's being able to exist within it without completely changing it, and that is just kind of completely opposite to what Bill 5 is trying to do. I'm not 100% sure on how Ontario Parliament works, but I can't remember if it's been fully passed or if it still has to go through a couple things. I think it may have to. There's a chance it could be repealed from what it was.
Yeah,
But
I believe so.
but the part of Anishinaabe culture that depends on the land uh is really the connection to not just the land itself, but the creatures living there and the plant life, and even the rocks are considered to be alive within the uh Anishinaabeg language, which interestingly enough has gendered words, but they're not gendered in masculine or feminine. They're gendered based on animacy or inanimacy. And rocks, trees, animals, obviously, almost anything you can find out there that looks like it may have even the faintest sign of life is seen as being just as worthy of not having that interfered with as human beings are. And that bill passing really is quite the antithesis to it.
Yeah, for sure. So, Carson, as an Indigenous education major, um, I understand that an interest you have is like teaching Ojibwe in the school system. Um, Obviously, Ojibwe is like a very old language and has a lot of history. Um, what do you think is the value of teaching Ojibwe to today's youth and the future's youth?
Um, Anishinaabe or Ojibwe is uh, one of numerous Algonquian languages, specifically in the Eastern Algonquian branch of the Algic language family, and it's one of the older ones, and it's really seen there that it hasn't been touched as much as some of the other Algonquian languages, just because of the similarity to the words and stuff they've been able to piece together of Proto-Algic, which is what all of them descended from. And the Anishinaabeg languages are some of the more untouched versions. And within that, you really do get a sense of a different worldview than you do with, say, English or Spanish. And that simply comes from the different gender categories within Anishinaabe. There's the animacy and then there's the inanimacy. And then none of the pronouns used in Anishinaabe are based on sex or gender. They're based just on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to somebody, uh, you've got a multitude of pronouns to choose from, depending on if you're speaking to them directly or about someone else, but to the person. And it's not just a word like them or they. It's specifically a word you use to talk about somebody else in the third person while talking to somebody. And it just gives a very wide range of understanding about other people and about just like other beings and other pieces of existence that aren't just part of the everyday in front of you. And teaching kids, teaching children about Anishinaabemowin is wildly important, just as a piece of historical information as well. If you don't understand Anishinaabemowin, if you can't speak it, you can't really understand the stories and the legends that come from the Anishinaabe culture. There are words and phrases that are lost entirely in translation to English and other languages. If it's not related to Ojibwe, then you can't get the full understanding of legends and stories from these cultures.
Right. Yeah, dope. It's so funny because when I turn on my camera, it's just like half of me.
Is it your instinctual reaction to return on your camera too? Because I keep on seeing it flash between the B and then the black screen.
I'm gonna try to see if it'll come back on, but I think I'm just gonna give up.
It's always fine to give up, kids. That's the lesson you learned today. You always give up
Yep.
if you can't do anything.
Yeah, out of anything that you'll learn in this episode, the main lesson of this...
Yeah, that's the most important. No, it's the most important thing. Totally, yeah.
So straying away just slightly, because I want to talk to you about more than just Indigenous Peoples Month. Carson, tell us some video games that you've been up on.
Mario Kart World on the Nintendo Switch 2 is fucking amazing. I don't care what people are saying about the Switch 2. So much of it is lies. I have seen so much misinformation about this console from people who don't have it or aren't even intending to get it at some point. I picked it up the day after launch day just because I was able to afford it, so I picked it up. And it's a nice upgrade from the original Switch. But Mario Kart World is such a nice change from the last couple Mario Kart games that have come out, and especially after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Mario Kart 8. That game has been out since 2014. Mario Kart has not changed at all in that time because it was out for so long. It was out for 10 years. Mario Kart 8 was the Mario Kart on Nintendo consoles for 10 years. And now it's done. It's
Thank
not
God.
done. Obviously there's still people playing that game, but Mario Kart World is amazing. Like it is I wouldn't say a perfect game. I don't think there's such a thing as the perfect video game. But I think it is the best you can do if you change up the form factor of a continuing series. And it has been so much fun the last couple of days, and I am going to keep playing it. And Fortnite has just started a new season. Fortnite has just started a new season, and that is really fun so far. I haven't had this much fun with Fortnite in about a year or so. Uh, and it usually happens over the summer months because that's when kids are off of school, and that's when the developers are trying to get more money and playtime out of people. So
What's the battle
that's
pass tier
yeah.
grind season?
Yeah.
Listen, my podcast that I did for a while, I haven't updated it in a while, but the last episode I did, I made sure to mention Hatsune Miku coming to Fortnite.
And it
Because
ruined the game.
and it was the day Hatsune Miku came out. I raced to my wallet, pulled out my credit card, and I paid for it. I know Fortnite is such a cliche answer for what video game is popular and what are you playing right now. But truly, I swear Fortnite will go down as a timeless classic when it does finally shut down in 10 years.
Dude, I'm gonna be playing Fortnite when I'm like 80. Oh God. It
Yeah,
better
they're gonna
still be
finally come
around.
back after they do the 947th Star Wars season because they're gonna keep on doing that.
Yeah. I might finally buy the battle pass
Yeah,
by
again.
the time I'm 80.
Another
Yeah.
superhero season.
It's the
If
best.
they
No,
still,
it's the second best one so far. Marvel one will always be the best.
Which Marvel superhero season?
Oh,
No.
the original. I forgot about the newer one. The original is always like the second best.
if they put like Klarna on the battle pass, then if they put Klarna on V-Bucks,
Who the
like
hell
where
is
you
Klarna?
can where you can pay like monthly.
Oh.
That's a thing. You can do that. It's
Oh yeah, the Fortnite crew.
It's Fortnite crew. $15 a month, and you can get all 4 of the different battle passes.
Which includes Sabrina
That's
Carpenter.
That's too much. I want to be able to like finance out buying like 100 V-Bucks. Like I want to spread out like
They used to have
25
that
cents.
in like Argentina.
100 V-Bucks is like $1.
Well, then I want to pay 25 cents a month for it.
Or it's like the first. You have to get to level 11 this season. You get 100.
Yeah, if you just grind the free battle pass, eventually
300 V-Bucks.
you'll have enough V-Bucks to buy it in like 2 years.
You have to get through the
Only two.
entire chapter to get a battle pass.
Don't you have like the Galaxy skin though, Brennan?
I have the rarest skin in Fortnite, guys.
I have a pretty
Arguably-
rare one too. I have the purple Xbox one.
I arguably have the most
No,
expensive
no.
Fortnite skin.
Brennan, I have Travis Scott. The entire thing.
I have a fairly rare Fortnite skin, and I know it's rare, and it's never coming back unless Will Smith can fix the problem with him getting basically banned from the Fortnite item shop. I will forever have the rarest. Well, not the rarest, but one of the rarest Fortnite skins, and that is Mike Lowry, who is Will Smith, and they haven't had him back since he released, ever.
Who do you think
And that
will
was
come?
that was more than 2 years ago at this point.
Travis Scott was 5.
Travis Scott probably not coming back. I don't think Will Smith will ever make his
His
return.
emotes came back, and they released a Drake emote recently. I think
Oh,
they have all your favorite classics like Jonesy, the human, and Jonesy, the cat.
And Jonesy. And Jonesy.
Yeah.
and Peely, and Frozen Peely.
All Peelies are actually
Peelies,
Jonesy.
which is crazy.
Yeah,
That new
Guys,
lizard skin in the battle pass, he's Jonesy.
he's probably Jonesy.
Because
Probably
of suntan
Jonesy.
specialist. He's a suntan specialist mixed with the camo pet. The lizard from season 6. That's how
Guys,
much of a Fortnite nerd I am.
Should we let Instagram Reels users know that Peely is Jonesy?
I think we should.
They might have missed out. I'll post this on our Reels.
So if
This
you
clip.
think about it, Jonesy has the most amount of reskins in the video game.
I think Jonesy makes up like at least 50% of all Fortnite skins.
I'd say he's
bare
at
minimum.
least 100. There's over
If I have my
2,000
camera
there's
on.
over 2,000 of those bastards.
2,000 Fortnite
and yet
skins.
we can't have WWE skins be Icon Series.
Are they not?
They're not.
Damn.
That's so weird. And they just released Cody Rhodes and Undertaker last season. They released The Undertaker in the season where the rapping pickle came out, and he's afraid of pickles, I think, or cucumbers.
I want a Benson Boone skin, and I want the emote to be where he
he rips
was
his shirt off.
adjusting. No, where he's adjusting his underwear on the
Can
Grammys.
I just show you my favorite Nintendo Switch controller really quick?
Please do. Wow.
It's the guy from Fortnite. I never got Peely. I was like an idiot 12-year-old and I never got Peely.
You and me got the free frozen Peely, though.
I don't have the original Peely. I could have gotten the original Peely.
I have every battle pass except for anything before Season 5 and Season 7 for some reason, because I did not play that.
Because that season sucked. Screw the Infinity Blade. First ever collab. No, wait. Second ever collab, by the way. Third, maybe. When did Marshmallow come out? I know it was Season 7.
It was the same. It was around the same time. I think it happened after.
Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah.
I guess we should stop talking about Fortnite.
I have every battle pass in Chapter 2 Season 2. I'm better. I've completed them all. Mostly.
Marshmallow?
Yeah, Marshmallow. He's a stormtrooper.
He's freaking touring with the Jonas Brothers this year.
Jonas Brothers in Fortnite?
I will be going. I actually will be going. I love Chambers.
I gotta make a small confession to you. I tried to read Mark Carney's book.
Oh man.
And then it turned out to be about economics, so I stopped reading.
That's his whole thing. He's a finance guy.
I know he's an economist, but like I've genuinely read a more exciting economics book before, so the boringness of his was slightly unexpected.
Mark Carney, drop a book about Fortnite, and if Mark Carney drop a book about Fortnite,
Zack Snyder should do the Fortnite movie.
Mark Carney do like the Fortnite movie.
Why? How do we still not have a Fortnite movie?
It took Minecraft 9 years.
We got the Skibbity Toilet movie coming out, though.
Oh, okay. So that's a Fortnite movie.
Well.
Oh wait, I forgot all the movies that have Fortnite skins in them. Those are Fortnite movies.
You know, every major Marvel movie that's ever existed.
Yeah, they're all Fortnite movies. You know that Transformers: Rise of the Beast Fortnite movie.
Jace and I will go out in public, and he'll see a shopping cart, and he'll be like, "Oh, that's the one of Fortnite."
I do this. I do that all the time.
I'm surprised you remember that. Is it because OG Season 4 came out?
Well, my favorite thing that Jace does is I'll say something like, "Oh my god!" Last week he was like, "How much you'd pay for your guitar?" I was like, $800. He was
that wasn't last week.
That's like 80,000. That's like 800,000 V-Bucks.
Exactly. I'm like, bro, come on.
That's not 800,000. Oh wait, yeah, it is. That's enough to get 8 doses of 13,500. Don't ask me why I call it in-game currency doses. I do it with GTA money too. It's a dose of money. When you get paid, you're getting a dose of money.
I did want to talk. We talk about media on here and stuff, highlighting Indigenous Peoples Month. Who are some of your favorite Indigenous music artists? If you had to recommend some.
A lot of the Indigenous artists I listen to are mainly powwow singers, so that might not be for everybody. But I listen to mainly for powwow songs. I listen to Northern Cree, and Young Spirit.
Nice.
Although if you are looking for, I have an entire playlist of Indigenous rappers too.
That's fire. We can link that. Send me that and we can link it up.
Yeah. But I can't really think of any names right off the bat.
That's all right. What about movies and or TV shows?
There's some very obvious answers here, and I will point them out. Smoke Signals, classic res comedy. I don't think I've ever met another Indigenous person on the res who hasn't seen Smoke Signals. Um, Reservation Dogs is another obvious one, but it's obvious for a reason, and it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Another good one, I would say, is just to throw one out there. If you go on to Disney Plus and you click on the original Star Wars, A New Hope, and you go to the extras, you can watch it in Navajo and in Ojibwe.
Damn. That's
Just
cool.
that one. They don't give you the rest of them.
They didn't do the rest of them.
Not yet.
Strange. I mean, I guess not yet. Maybe they do it later.
And just Navajo and Ojibwe so far.
Yeah. And that Predator movie that came out a couple years ago has another version of it in an Indigenous language. I can't remember which language it was though. I think it was Comanche. Yeah, it was Comanche.
That's Prey, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a guy from the Fortnite video game that isn't actually the Fortnite video game. They have Nightwolf from Mortal Kombat 11. His daughter plays the main character in that. I'm pretty sure they both have the same last name.
Amber Midthunder.
Yeah, Amber Midthunder. Her dad plays as like the model for Nightwolf in Mortal Kombat 11.
And I believe that film is also like just centered around Indigenous narratives as well.
Yeah, it is a lot. A lot of it is based on Indigenous stuff.
Any King of the Hill episode with John Redcorn in it. Rest in
peace. Rest in peace, the actor.
Oh man, that's quite a heavy. Yeah, geez.
I know.
What happened to him is very tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also a case in point of like how these things need to be recognized. Indigenous Month and Pride Month, you know, for the people who can't. I also wanted to talk about just like what you think makes positive media representation for Indigenous people and culture, and what makes negative media representation.
So positive media representation of Indigenous people is at its absolute peak when it shows that we are in fact just people like everybody else. Not like we're some special group of people that's better than everyone else at connecting with nature. Because we're not. It just so happens to be part of our culture that connecting with the outdoors and with animals and plants just so happens to be part of it, and it's not 100% of who we are. It's just a small bit of what we are as people. I mean, if you take a look behind me, I think there's a fucking Spy Family poster on my wall.
Lit.
Fix my camera angle. There we go. And obviously, how much I talked about Fortnite earlier. Positive media representation of Indigenous people is just showing us as we are, even if it's a little bit scripted, as long as it's not using like the humble savage stereotype. I think that would be positive media representation. Except for maybe one specific case I can think of, and that would be Echo in the fucking Marvel shows. Because that was I'm not gonna go into detail on that, but I was disappointed by the Indigenous representation in that show.
Man, too bad to hear that because I did genuinely enjoy that character.
It was a good. She's a good character, and it was a good show. But the representation about Indigenous people specifically isn't great. It's a propaganda piece by the nation that they show in the show. They do everything to get. They're one of the tribes with a large casino, and they're trying to get people to come down there and spend their money.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's too bad. Hopefully more characters come along. Hopefully more, especially like Marvel and Disney and those kind of universes, because I feel like they have such a huge platform for change. Yeah.
I think Marvel did do a good job with that character they introduced in What If, Gahori.
Mm.
I actually have kind of a loose connection to the person who provided all of the Mohawk translation for that episode. A very loose connection because she's the aunt of my Mohawk language professor from last year.
There you go. You know what? That's not too loose of a connection. It could be looser.
It could be.
Yeah. What other questions do I have? Let's see. Yeah, okay, well, here, let's do this. So when companies like, Star Wars or that kind of thing do start to do those kind of, I guess you could say, celebrations of, Indigenous history and culture where they do include, like, those subtitles and stuff, what is is there real, value to that for people even who aren't Indigenous or might not speak these languages? Like, what is the value of a company with such a huge platform and audience providing a translation for an Indigenous language?
I just think it's really good, and it normalizes the use of Indigenous languages. Like, so often you hear cases of somebody not 100% believing that Indigenous languages are worth saving because they're on the decline or they're too hard to learn. But if you are able to properly translate that into properly translate an entire movie script into an Indigenous language, that showcases that these languages aren't dead, because they're able. It's like all other languages; they can transform and they can become new, modern, without looking like just a relic of the past. And sometimes you do just have to take a loan word and use that for a translation, but you can make new things. And I really did find that with Star Wars. Like the title, even the title is full translation. Anungong Migading. It's a war amongst the stars, and I just find that really fun, and being able to see Anishinaabe spoken casually along with other Indigenous language spoken casually, I think really shows people that it's not just a thing for ceremonies and history videos. It can be used in everyday life, and I try to use it in everyday life. Even if people don't understand what I'm saying, I try to use it as much as I can. And
Yeah.
having that platform, the platform that Disney can provide now that they own Star Wars, and Prey, since they own 20th Century Fox now too. Um, uh, that platform that they can show that indigenous languages can be used in everyday contexts really is quite amazing.
Yeah. And I guess another thing that I wanted to highlight is like, I mean, for all of us. Listen, I've been looking back for myself in the context of Pride Month about like how garbage our high school administration was at like handling absolutely any issues with any marginalized people ever. Um, and I was wondering if you, I wanted to open the floor to you to maybe talk about your experience with this a little bit.
Um, well, a lot of my issues with the with what was going on regarding indigenous peoples during high school were with the usage of the indigenous space at the school, because there was there was a number of cases of people who had no um actual claims to indigenous ancestry using resources meant for indigenous students. And in some cases, I know for a fact that some of these people were pretending, and I know that they were taking opportunities from actual indigenous students. And I know the school likes to try and be all uh, on the lowdown about using pretending and accusing people of being fake indigenous people, but it happened more than once where there were people who did not have indigenous heritage using resources meant for indigenous people, and they didn't really handle that properly. Um, if anything ever happened, it was usually because the students, we took things into our own hands. And I discovered this during university, but I kind of recognized it beforehand. Uh, Indigenous ways of knowledge cannot exist within uh, the current colonial school system. It's almost entirely impossible. The worldviews collide so much that it would be almost entirely impossible to get through without having a disagreement every couple minutes. And the only reason I'm in the program for uh, teaching is because you have to have a teacher's license to teach Anishinaabe in Ontario, and there's no way to get around that. So those are the parts that I think collide specifically there,
Yeah.
along with the handling of issues involving Indigenous students in the Ontario school system. It's not there. They don't really think about us because we're not a very large population. And the stuff they do, they not do, but the stuff that they act on really is like lip service. I remember because during June, they would have the Every Child Matters flag out instead of a flag of an indigenous nation.
Yeah.
And that's a flag for a specific use, for a specific cause, not to represent what indigenous people are.
Yeah.
It that's just a bad part of what has happened to indigenous people in this country, but they seem to use it at any occasion involving indigenous people, and that's kind of disappointing to see,
Yeah.
as well as the fact that they have more than enough room to put up multiple flags on the flagpoles, but they would only ever put up the pride flag or only ever put up the Every Child Matters flag at a time. instead
Yeah.
instead of both trying to, it was almost like they were trying to pit us against each other, and I know that definitely worked on some of the people. I would hear some
It
stuff once in a
it
while.
it did. Which is terrible. And then there was also this thing of like there was times where they'd take the Canada flag down completely to put up one or the other, which created so much violence and aggression towards like indigenous and queer students at our school because like people were already hostile towards indigenous queer people at our school, like very hostile in a lot of ways. And that just like created, and I have no doubts that they can't say, oh, we didn't think that would happen, because there is so much like nationalism and like yeehaw people at our high school. And so that was another thing where I just felt like they were almost like they were not only doing lip service, but they were like targeting the marginalized students as well.
And then, of course, there was the thing that I will not talk about, but you can talk about if you want to.
um, in a little summarization, not to. It's been spoken about on several
It
podcasts.
has been several different podcasts, several different people.
um, there was a situation in our last year of high school. For background, we come from a very small, quite conservative town in Ontario. There was a situation in our final year of high school where we were supposed to do a production of Beauty and the Beast. There was a student in that production who was incredibly racist, homophobic, misogynist. Yeah, he said a lot of very terrible things towards other people. And when this was reported and brought forward to our school administration, it sparked basically a series of conferences and meetings with us and the principal, in which we reported things that happened to us, things that other people have witnessed, that were all terrible and stem back over like our entire 4 years with this student. And we were then told that he had been educated, and upon asking what that education was, he had to sit in the office for like a couple lunch periods and write a essay about the history of the N-word, which was really cool and fun. And then they were like, okay, yeah, he's just gonna be in the play with you still, though. And we were like, hey, no, that's not okay. Because he hasn't changed at all, actually, and he's still saying these things. And then the principal was like, well, if you're gonna cause problems, is what they told us we were causing problems. Um, Including they also like searched my phone. Anyways, there was a bunch of stuff. And they were like, if you're gonna cause problems, we're gonna cancel the show. And so they did, and then here we are. That's the gist of it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, the marginalized students were really screwed over on that one. He said racist things. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a. Oh, it was a. That was a time to be alive. And then we lost you in person for a semester.
Yeah, I did leave for my second half of grade 12 because of threats from this guy's friends. Were like low key making me fear for my life, and like also they were just being really homophobic and stuff. So I was like, okay, bye. And then I left. And it was bliss. It was true bliss, to be honest with you. On the topic of decolonization, as like an artist, an actor down here, I noticed there's a lot of companies and um artists who are not indigenous who love to call their companies like decolonial, who love to like self-proclaim themselves as decolonial without actually what seems like any real action. Um I was wondering what does it take to actually be decolonial, and can you really call yourself that?
You so I have my own personal feelings on the idea of decolonizing. Uh and there are some more agreed upon ones, but mine is that you cannot call yourself a decolonial space if you are not trying to get rid of those borders caused by colonization. And it's similar enough to what the agreed upon one is, but like I think mine is my personal definition is just a little bit more clear on what those definitions are, and it is de-cleansing yourself of any uh stereotypes you hold, whether that be a positive stereotype or a negative stereotype. If you're looking at indigenous people through a lens other than these are people, you're not going to get very far in being a decolonial space. The best, like I said when I was talking about what allyship means earlier, you need to look at indigenous people as just people. And if you don't do that, then you're not understanding what it means to be decolonial or to be an ally. It just means removing those blockades that were there before. Like, I know there's a lot of cases of typecasting specifically. Like you take the indigenous person and you make sure their role is indigenous. That's not decolonial. That is a minstrel without racist language.
This did happen in our high school, by the way.
But like all I see it as is, as long as you are not actively doing anything harmful or allowing harmful things to be going on, or I think people that overdo land acknowledgements are actively colonial, because if you are like proactively doing a land acknowledgement every time you do something, it's just kind of like a pie in the face at that point.
Yeah.
Like at the Mervish Theater, every single performance, except for the Lion King for some reason.
Really? I didn't even notice. That's interesting.
I mean, there might be something else. There might be some other shows, but out of the stuff I've seen at the Mervish Theater, the Lion King didn't have a land acknowledgement, but everything else I've seen has. So it's like,
Incredible show, by the way. Highly recommend.
Great show. It was amazing.
But that's a bit odd. Yeah.
It just tone down the frequency of land acknowledgements, and just remember to view indigenous people as people and not this exotic thing. And you're doing a good job.
Period. Well, I will say, I'll open the floor to you now if there's anything specific you want to talk about.
Hold on. This is a Japanese comic book or manga called My Dear Friend Nokotan, and it is the most batshit insane thing I have ever read. It is about It is genuinely not clear if this is if this is a girl or like an actual deer.
Oh dear.
And I just want to say that I love the brain rot manga. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. Check out my dear friend Nokotan. Don't link that one in the description. If they made it this far, they'll find it.
You'll find it. All right. And with that, thank you so much, Carson, for coming on this week.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jace, for getting a haircut and shaving your dirt stash.
No, I saw the
Thank
mustache. I don't have the
you
beard.
And thank you, Brennan's camera, for breaking
for
halfway through the
dying.
recording.
Rest in peace to the camera.
Yeah, again, next week we have Laura Brunelle, when she doesn't have strep, talking about mental health in the dance industry. And I'm going to link the books that Carson talked about below. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week on Fueled Fridays.
We're gonna move to the we're gonna move from the road to the parking lot next week. So we'll see you in the parking lot to the airport.
We have this joke where each episode is a different step of getting on the plane, and last week was the Denny's across the airport, and this one is the parking lot.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, bye.